So good day, we're going to learn about social psychology. In this presentation, I will show you what makes a social group, the factors affecting behavior, the terminologies encountered in social psychology, work in a working group, the performance and the decision making, the stages of group development, the standards of working together, cooperation and competition, and the psychology of attraction. So what is social psychology? So in the presentation, social psychology is the scientific study of how people's thoughts, feelings, and behaviors are influenced by the actual imagined or implied presence of others. So first of all, why do we need to study social psychology? Well, social psychologists study why we're often helpful to other people and why we may at other times be unfriendly or aggressive. Another study is having the benefits of a good relationship with other people and the costs of being lonely. Another is factors that lead people to purchase one product rather than another and how men and women behave differently in social settings. So mostly social psychology's application is on marketing strategies. So here's a background of how social psychology was developed. First is Kurt Lewin and Leon Festinger refined the experimental approach in studying behavior. Kurt Lewin is known as the father of social psychology. In 1954, Festinger edited an influential book named Research Methods, which pushes that there is a need of laboratory equipments in measuring variables and lab experiments to test social behavior. Next, social psychology was energized by researchers who attempted to understand on Adolf Hitler and how he could have produced such extreme obedience and horrendous behaviors in his followers during the Second World War. And this term, the study of how our social behavior influences and is influenced by the activities of our brain, is known as social neuroscience. So I'm going to discuss the person and social situation. So here in this figure at the left, you can see two persons drinking iced tea while the other one is drinking soft drinks such as Coke. But eventually, as time increases, the person drinking soft drinks will eventually drink iced tea as well. So what does this entail? So the person's social situation entail that human behavior is determined by both a person's characteristics and the social situation. They also believe that the social situation has a stronger influence on the behavior of a person rather than the person's characteristics. Our behavior depends on whom we interact every day. Example of these are friends, family, sorority brothers, organization, friends, religious groups, people we see on TV, the people we read or interact in the web, as well as the people we think about, remember, or even imagine. So here is a terminology, the process which people change our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, and through which we change theirs is known as social influence. Now, according to Kurt Lewin, this is the behavior of a person is known as the person, situation, and interaction, in which behavior is the function of the person we encounter every day and the social situation that we experience every day. So, evolutionary adaptation and human characteristics. In Levin's equation, person refers to the characteristics of individual human being. People are born with skills on which we interact successfully with other people in the social world. So, it is innate in us to interact with other people successfully. So here are some terminologies. The assumption that human nature, including much of our social behavior, is determined largely by our evolutionary past. Fitness refers to the extent in which having a given characteristic helps the individual organism survive and reproduce at a higher rate. So in order to effectively maintain our lives and enhance it with interaction with other people, we rely on these three basic interrelated human capacities known as the ABCs. So A is affect. It refers to the feelings we experience as part of our everyday life. Behavior, again, it's the interactions. And cognition, the way we think about other people. So terminology. So social cognition is the cognition that relates to social activities and helps us understand and predict the behaviors of ourselves and others. So there are two types of knowledge, schema and attitude. So schema is a knowledge that represents the information about the person or group, while attitude is a knowledge that represents primarily our liking or disliking of a person, think, or group. So what are the differences of affect, mood, and emotion? So affect refers to the feelings we experience as part of our everyday lives. Mood refers to the positive or negative feelings that are in the background of our everyday experience. And emotions are brief but often intense mental and physiological feeling states. So comparing ourselves with other people have an influence on our self-esteem. One example is Asian mothers comparing our grades to other family members, and we can classify these social comparisons into two. One is downward social comparison. It occurs when we attempt to create a positive image of ourselves through favorable comparisons with others who are worse off than we are. So example is I have higher grades than the person in the back. Let's say he has low scores of quizzes. And next is upward social comparison. It occurs when we compare ourselves with others who are better off than we are. So one of the main features of social psychology is the working group performance and decision making, in which these studies is how person interacts with other people in group works and activities. So here's a terminology. So social group as a set of individuals with a shared purpose and who normally share a positive social identity. We coin the term positive. There's no negative in a social group. Well, while social groups form a basis of human culture and productivity, they also produce some of our most profound disappointments and create the very opposite of what we might hope for. Example is when you make friends when you're kids, then someone is teasing you inside the group, and when you're easily angered by jokes, you tend to punch them or hurt them, which produces a negative social identity. So what makes a social group? So the term is entitativity. So entitativity is the perception either by the group members themselves or by others that the people are together in a group. So the determinants of entitativity are three: similarity, communication, and social identity. For a social group to form, you need a similar ideas, hobbies. For example, I play basketball and my friends play basketball. That's why we have frequent communication, which is the second one, on how great basketball players are in the NBA, and our ideas are expressed, opinions, and so I've explained two: similarity and communication. Next is social identity. So social identity is the part of the social concept in which they define themselves as part of the group. Okay, they feel that they belong in the group. They feel good about it being part of the group because the members let them feel good. So I'm going to discuss the four stages of development. So there are four: forming and relationship development, storming and conflict, norming and performing, and adjourning. So forming and relationship development is also known as the group formation, in which the group comes together and begins the existence of the social group. Next is storming and conflict. Recall that the previous slide I discussed the determinants of entitativity, in which one is similarity. In similarity, you have similar opinions, ideas, hobbies, but in storming, you will learn that not all of your opinions are the same, and you disagree basically you'll find some of the things that you don't agree with the group. And in storming and conflict, this is compared as the adolescence stage, and this is where the group are persuaded for your ideas. Next is norming and performing. In norming and performing, you report great satisfaction and identification to the group. And when the social group are at this stage, they have the ability to meet and survive the goals and challenges. Next is adjourning. So, in adjourning is similar to a breakup in a relationship. This is the task at which the group is completed, and this occurs because the group members have an interest outside the group and will promise to get together. Most likely will promise you to be together in the future, exchange phone numbers, which is unlikely to happen. So next is the pluses and minuses of working together. So not all persons are the same in group works. One favors to do the task alone, and one favors on doing it in a group. So there's what we call social facilitation. It is the tendency to perform tasks better or faster in the presence of others, while social inhibition is the opposite of that, in which the tasks are performed poorly or slower in the presence of others. Here is a figure to demonstrate that. So the easy tasks, the yellow bar, and the blue bar is the difficult task. As you can see, many members in the easy tasks have performed the task faster, while in the difficult tasks, it is more favorable to do it alone than in a group. See? So these results convincingly demonstrated that working around others could either help or hinder performance. So according to Robert Zahonk, more arousal occurs in social group, in which we will perform dominant response. This is the term used by Robert Zahonk to determine social facilitation and social inhibition. The important aspect on Robert's theory was that the experience of arousal and the resulting increasing of performance of the dominant response could be used to predict whether the presence of others would produce social facilitation or social inhibition. So next is group conformity pressures. There's what we call groupthink. It occurs when a group that is made up of members who may actually be very competent and thus quite capable of making excellent decisions, but in the end making up a poor one as a result of flawed group process and strong conformity pressures. So here's an example. So we have a powerful and directive leader who creates a positive group feeling, and in times of stress and crisis, when the group needs to rise to the occasion and make an important decision. The problem is that when groups are suffering from groupthink, they become unwilling to seek out or discuss discrepant or unsettling information about the topic at hand, and the group members do not express contradictory opinions. So here's an example of a picture. So this is the directive leader. He asks, "Do we agree?" Everybody agrees, but in conscience or in their hearts, they feel that it's not good, they're doomed, it's a bad idea, because they are scared of expressing their opinions because it may hinder their time on the project, or because they think too highly of their leader. So one of the important topics in social psychology is competition and cooperation in our social worlds. Well, most of the people tend to do competition because they are self-centered, they want to have grades, or because they want to develop their career. So to differentiate competition and cooperation, let's have some terminologies first. So cooperation is the behavior that occurs when we trust people or groups with whom we are interacting and are willing to communicate and share with others. So you think for the welfare of others instead of yourself. Competition, we attempt to gain as many of the limited rewards as possible for ourselves, and at the same time we may work to reduce the likelihood of success for the other parties. Or there's a self-centered attitude in this competition. Next is social dilemma. It is the situation in which the goals of the individual conflict with the goals of the other group. So in cooperation, there's what we call morality. So there are two types of morality: social conventional morality and harm-based morality. Social conventional morality refers to the norms that are seen as appropriate within a culture but do not involve behaviors that relate to doing or harm toward others. Well, next is harm-based morality. So it's self-explanatory that harming others, either physically or violating their rights, is wrong. The essential part of morality involves determining what is right or fair. This is known as social fairness. We want things to be fair. That's why there is justice. We try to be fair ourselves and react negatively when we see things that are unfair. That's human nature. There are two types of social fairness: distributive fairness and procedural fairness. Distributive fairness refers to our judgments about whether or not a party is receiving a fair share of the available rewards, while procedural fairness are beliefs about the fairness of the procedures used to distribute available rewards among parties. So the last topic for this presentation is psychology of attraction, in which proximity, physical attractiveness, and similarity are some factors of attraction, in which it entails why are we attracted to our family, why are we attracted to our friends, why are we attracted to our girlfriends, boyfriends. So first is proximity. It is the nearness is a powerful predictor of friendship. So frequent if you're seeing each other frequently and you're near each other, it can show attraction. Next is physical attractiveness, the physical appearance. We're attracted to a handsome, beautiful person with good skin, with good facial appearance. And lastly is similarity, which is again one of the determinants of antithetivity, in which similar views among individuals causes bond attraction to strengthen. So if you and your friend or in your crush have similar opinions, similar ideas, similar views, similar hobbies, then most likely you'll be attracted to him or her. So that concludes social psychology for my topic, and I hope you learned something, and thank you for listening.